Welcome back to episode 7 of Premside Pod. As you can see, I'm a little somber today. No Prem footy for 3 months. It's going to be tough.
But what a season it was, and what a season
Yeah.
it was. And now's the time to just simply assess every team. Let's break it down. Let's start off with Norwich, the Canaries. They got relegated. I think this is an easy one for us. I think we have to give them an F on the season.
Yeah, I think it's an F because the two teams, and I think we're going to go Watford F2 because Burnley, at least they put up a fight in that relegation scrap, but Norwich, Dean Smith came in, couldn't get the job done. Um,
Mhm.
Disappointing.
Seriously, just a complete capitulation by the team. Never really gave it. Timu Puki couldn't replicate his goal scoring form that he did last time they were in the league. It's an
Yeah,
F. I think that's an easy one.
yeah, and another interesting point, I want to make is Pookie was the leading goal scorer on that team with 11 goals, and the second highest goal scorer was Josh Sargent with 2. And that shows you Josh Sargent, he's been terrible this year for Norwich. So, I mean, I think that sums it up.
Definitely, just that team hasn't been able to deliver. Watford, yet again, can you give them an F? My man Josh King, the Norwegian, I wanted him to deliver. It was a tough task. João Pedro, some bright spots in that team, but still wasn't meant to be. And back to the championship they go.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone was kind of excited about this team with Ranieri at the wheel, but I think he's kind of a manager that kind of is he gets everything or he gets nothing, and unfortunately, he got nothing here.
hmm Definitely not the fairy tale he had with Leicester.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Burnley, I think it's a D.
D. I'm gonna argue. Yeah, D. It's they
It,
got
t- it
they
took
went
it
down a
took them till
couple
the
of
final day of the season. Them Leeds and Everton neck and neck. They pushed, but you know Sean
Yeah,
Sean Dyche Sean Dyche leaving after his tenure with the club was definitely hard.
yeah.
Financially, they really couldn't bring anyone in. It was a tough season for them.
Yeah, and I think hindsight now, maybe sacking Dyche wasn't the right decision. Maybe it was. It's so hard to say because they actually did get some results with Maxim, but it wasn't enough. And I'm surprised that we didn't see Veghorst get going a little more this season. Cornet was solid, but I thought those two could have been a phenomenal duo. And honestly, if Veghorst and Cornet, if they stay, they're gonna tear up the championship next season.
Vegas looked to be like a great signing, but for me, I think the root of all their problems was just sacking Sean Dyche mid-season. You're a relegation side. You're not really going in nowhere. You're not getting signings. It's very hard for a new manager. And by the way, who do they have? Michael Jackson and Ben Mee leading the line. They're-
Mike Jackson.
Mike Jackson. The replacements weren't there. I'm sorry. They didn't do enough. I just did not think it was an intelligent choice to sack Sean Dyche.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like this Burnley team has been weak for so long, and they finally have gone down. Honestly, I'm kind of happy they went down. I would not have wanted to see Lee go down. Ted Lasso at the wheel. I'm so happy they stayed up. Let's move on to Leeds.
Jesse
I
Marsh,
I
the
like
American.
yeah, Jesse Marsh, Ted Lasso. I'd go C. I think you'll agree.
I like
He
that. I'm
stayed
proud
up.
of him.
Yeah, the injuries that they had this year, they were bad. Bamford, Calvin
Patrick
Phillips.
Bamford barely saw the light of day. Calvin Phillips out for a while. Never mind those silly red cards that just accumulated towards the end of the season with Dan James and Ailing.
Yeah,
Just listen, definitely a drop off from last season, no doubt. But I'm a little hopeful for this team. Hopefully next season with a healthy, fit squad, we can see them finish in the top half. And I'm pretty hopeful with that.
yeah, and I mean they were so good last season. But I
So
think the
good.
injuries
Jack
really.
Harrison, by the way, with that 90th minute winner. Really
Yeah,
exciting to see what's to come from him. A lot of bright spots in this Leeds team. Unlucky this season. Jesse Marsh at the helm. Bright future, but this is definitely a bit of a rebuild, but I think they're up to the task.
yeah. I don't know if you saw Brendan Aronson. I think he's coming from Salzburg. That will be a
That's
huge
an, that's an
signing for them.
exciting signing. Salzburg
Exciting.
really just pumping out the young talent over these past couple of
Yeah, yeah.
years.
True, but yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna see Leeds like really push for a
Mhm,
mid-table position next
mhm,
season. Maybe nothing higher than that, but yeah,
mhm,
I'm excited to see what they can do. They finally have
mhm.
Jesse Marsh kind of steadied the ship. Bielsa was kind of a little bit like we never really knew what we were gonna expect out of Bielsa's lead
They were
side.
always such a wild card. They would either
Yeah,
push. I remember, like, a few seasons back, they played this, like, 3-3-4-4 draw with United, really so much in that team, so exciting, but I think what they're looking for is consistency, and I think they'll
yeah,
have that.
yeah,
Moving on to Everton. I'm
absolutely.
super critical of this team. They are not deserving of any praise. A historical club like them cannot put out performances like they did in this past season. I think they get an F, and I don't think there's any argument.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's nearly just catastrophe for Everton. They almost got relegated for the first time in their history, and credit to them for staying up. They're only one of like 6 teams still that have never gone down to the championship. But yeah, I mean, like players like Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, like you don't expect those guys to be in a relegation scrap.
Jordan Pickford, the
Pickford,
sheer
England's
talent
number
that they
one.
have in
Yeah,
their ranks, you would just expect a lot more from them, really a lot more. Disappointing season. Frank Lampard, a lot of questions around him as a manager. Next year, let's see what they do in the summer, let's see what they do next season, but definitely a season to forget for Evertonians.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, can you imagine if this Everton team went down, just what it would do to their club? A club with so much history,
Mhm.
like I mean, they really like survived.
Imagine a Premier League season without the Merseyside derby.
Yeah, I mean, honestly though, like the Merseyside derby is it's nothing special anymore.
Mhm,
But I mean, yeah, I think Lampard, he'll find at least he stayed up, and he's finally gonna he'll get some time. He'll get a summer to assess,
mhm.
make some more signings.
I think the
But
Chelsea job is definitely a bit premature for him. I think he
yeah,
needed to prove himself. I think Everton's a good club. It's a community club. Not nearly as much pressure as the Chelsea job, especially when Roman Abramovich was running that team. But yeah, Everton just hopefully they can bounce back. I really hope so.
yeah.
Moving on to Southampton, a very interesting season. We saw a lot of bright spots with Broja, JWP, Ward-Prowse with his classic free kicks. But they had good spells and they had bad spells. Jaffe, where would you put them?
I look like if you asked me 2 months ago, they would potentially be an A tier or B tier. In that middle of the season, they were just winning at game after game. Kyle Walker Peters, Tino Livramento, Romain Perot in the back, Salisu, they were so solid. Ward Prowse, Oriol Romeu, but they faded. So
It was a
I
shaky finish. They ended up
would
in
give
15th place.
gotta be a
Right.
C. Given how good they were at times, I would have to put them in C.
I agree. Aston Villa, right when Gerrard got there and I saw they were signing Coutinho, and even before, with all that Grealish money, they brought in Emi Buendia, they had Danny Ings, they even brought in Luca Digne, and you know what? I don't think they delivered. I don't think they delivered.
Not at all.
I think
I
I
think
think we've
D.
definitely seen flashes, especially on that final day. Yes, they choked, but 2-0 against City up until, like, the 70th minute. Definitely some praise awarded there. Definitely pieces for the future, but I think this season they underperformed.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the story of this Villa side. They've been just like on paper such a solid team now. Like Coutinho, um, even players like Ezri Konsa have come up.
I think Emi
Very
Martinez is
fast.
really making his mark on
Jake
this league.
Ramsey, the youngster. But
Definitely a
yeah,
player
I
for the
mean, like
future.
the kind of match temperament hasn't been there. The inconsistency has been there. So I would go D. I think.
D, wow. I don't know if I'm gonna give them a D just yet. You really think a D?
I mean, yeah, because I mean, if you're comparing just like it in relation to how we expected Villa to do,
It is true. 14th
14th
place is nothing to brag
miserable.
about.
It's terrible.
You're right. Now, moving on to an exciting team, Thomas Frank and the Bees, Brentford. Wow. Way to make it into the Premier League. very first day of the season, beating Arsenal 2-0 on their home turf, 13th place at the end of the season. Really exciting for this Brentford team. Really exciting. I was skeptical, Ivan Toney having an incredible year in the championship, top scorer. Wasn't sure how they were going to transition, but you know what? I think they exceeded my expectations. I think they exceeded everyone's expectations. I think you got
Yeah,
to give the Bees an A here.
you got to. I agree. You have to give them an A because newly promoted team. The other two sides that were promoted went straight back down, and
And they
like
were a tough side all year. I remember they gave Chelsea their fair share of struggles. They've beaten some class teams.
yeah, and I think also the addition of Ericsson really gave them that final push, but they were performing without him. Like I think right before they got him, they really were struggling, but it was an impossible run of games for them. Like they had City, then Liverpool. It was just hard. But I mean, if you do you remember that 3-3 draw against Liverpool? Like this team really pulled some through with some incredible results this season.
This team has grit, and I have to give it to them. I think Thomas Frank is doing an incredible job, and definitely a team that I think could become a mainstay in the Premier League for years to come. I'm really optimistic about them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's work to do, definitely, just on paper. I
I
think
think
they're
I
they're
think
they're
squad depth
well
is a big
they're a
issue.
well-managed team, but, there's
Mhm.
some names on that list on that team that are very questionable. I'm not sure if they're not gonna be able to keep Ericsson.
I don't
Tony,
I don't think
Tony,
so.
yeah, and Tony, all the controversy that, uh,
Mm.
that happens with him in Brentford, he's gonna leave eventually.
We'll see what
Um,
happened to Norgard, a player with loads of praise this season.
love Norgard.
Really, really an exciting player in the middle of the park.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Yohan, he's, another good player, but yeah, I mean, they and the thing about Brentford that's so interesting is they kind of take, a Moneyball approach to football, which is so cool to see because they get players that know where to be, that be in the right place at the right time, players that have high XG, and it's ultimately proven to work for them.
Definitely good on Thomas Frank for that one.
Yeah,
Moving on to Crystal Palace. It's been a very exciting year for them. On this pod, we're big fans of Gallagher and Mitchell. Exciting bright spots in that team. Patrick Vieira, very good job this season, beating City, beating United on the final day of the season. They've put up some great results, this Crystal Palace team. Ultimately finished a little bit lower than I would have expected them to be honest. But definitely a lot of bright spots. The quality is there. But, yet again, Gallagher probably going to be moving on, returning to Chelsea, I hope. I'd put them in a B. I think that's definitely a fair
yeah,
assessment.
I'm gonna agree with you. I think they're a team that really embody just the youth that is just being pushed into this Premier League, and I love it. It's incredible to see Mitchell,
Definitely.
Gallagher, Eze, Elise, this. There's some
Mhm,
incredible players in this side. Um, Other shout out to Jean-Philippe Mateta. He's been
mhm.
brilliant up top. Um,
Brilliant.
they're really just a nice young team. I
Mhm.
think losing Gallagher is definitely gonna hurt. But they're not big spenders. They're players that they're a team that gets players that are loyal. Wilfred Zaha,
His
and
best ever
another
season in the Premier League, by the way, statistically.
yeah, and I'm gonna make a bold claim here. I don't even know if it's bold, but I think Mark Gahey and Joachim Anderson are the most underrated center back duo in the entire world. Like I
I've been saying this for a while. The fact that
Yeah,
Chelsea let Mark Gahey go and decides to keep Malang Sarr is mental.
yeah, and
Mental.
Joachim
Mental.
Anderson, probably one of the best passers of the ball as a center back in the Premier League. Yeah, exciting team.
And
Losing
also
Gallagher.
Kouyaté, by the way, I'm just gonna shout him out. It's really not a bad back line at all. As we've seen,
Yeah,
they've been able to contain City twice. Twice. They also played a 0-0 draw. A lot to come from this Palace team. I think consistency is definitely something they're gonna work on, but definitely a step in the right direction. I'm excited to see what happens with them.
Absolutely. Moving on to Newcastle, I'm gonna let you take this one because I know you're a big Eddie Howe fan.
I rate Eddie
Yeah.
Howe. He's done an excellent job. Potentially manager of the season candidate. We know he was nominated, but really, I love this Newcastle team this season. Really putting the new in Newcastle, new owners, new players, and I have to say, Eddie Howe saved the sinking ship. Bruno Guimaraes, incredible. The reinvention of Joe Ellington as a player. Colin Wilson coming back into the team, scoring goals. There's a lot to be excited about with this Newcastle team. A lot to be excited about. I would love to give them an A, but their position on the table does not justify that. But I think a B is a very fair rating for this Newcastle team.
Yeah, a B's fair. I like it because I mean, if the season started in 2022, they'd be A, and they'd maybe be in the Champions League. But yeah, honestly, they've been that good under Eddie Howe with the
11th
signing.
place, really not a bad
Yeah,
finish at
and
all.
I really did not like the signings they made. I have to say, like Trippier, I questioned. Dan
I
Burn
mean,
was
Trippier was out
questionable.
for such a long time, but
Yeah,
they didn't even really need him at the end of the
yeah.
day.
Bruno, I loved, and he's been just
He's definitely
phenomenal.
proven his worth.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this Newcastle team is probably gonna be one of the fastest rising teams in the Prem for the next 5 years or so, probably decade. Because I mean, that money's it's gonna start coming in.
I agree. I agree. I think there's a lot to see. The summer's going to be exciting, linked with all sorts of players. But I back Eddie Howe, and I think we have a lot to look forward to. I think they could really be competing for Europa League spots next season. I don't think that's that crazy. I don't think it's that
It's
crazy.
yeah, it's not.
It's really not that crazy. Conference League at the very least.
Yeah, that I mean, a European position at that.
Mhm.
I think I don't know. Like if they like, I don't even see so many holes in this side. Like I think definitely they need probably another midfielder. But Joe Ellington and Bruno, like they're staying in that midfield. Saint Maximan, um,
Love St.
Callum
Maximin.
Wilson's been he's been looking good since he came back.
He's been
Um,
looking great.
yeah,
Potentially replacing Martin Dubravka at goal, but
yeah.
they
Dean
have the
Henderson
funds.
linked.
They have the funds for that.
Yeah, Dean Henderson linked. I think that would be a good signing.
That'd be amazing. He's getting no playing time on United,
Yeah,
and
and
we saw how good he was at Sheffield last season.
yeah, and I think we've seen the power of having, like, a young English goalkeeper in the Premier League to kinda command, like, a team. Pickford on Everton, Ramsdale now with Arsenal, so I think Henderson to Newcastle could be great
Mhm.
for them.
Definitely, especially for him, he's trying to get in that World Cup squad. Would be very smart for him. Moving on, the Portuguese national team. Just kidding, it's Wolves. You know, Jorge Lage, Bruno Lage, excuse me, excellent manager. They've done well this season. They've done well. Jaffe, I know you have a lot to say about Wolves.
Yeah, I was such a big fan of this Wolves team. Like I thought we'd see Wolves in the Europa League. They were really above Spurs for the majority of the season. Um, I think the one thing about this Wolves team that kind of allowed them to kind of perform so out of their range was the defense that they had at one point with Jose Sa, Romain Saiss, Connor Cody, and Max Kilman. But we kind of saw that defense crumble uh, kind of midway, and the team crumbled ultimately. I think really disappointing for them to fall out of a European position. So I think I have to go with B because they were just phenomenal like earlier in the season.
I agree. A 10th place finish, it's definitely not what we expected from them. And the results have really been topsy-turvy all season. Like we've seen them bring Liverpool to the very end, losing 1-0 narrowly. We've seen them beat your Spurs. And then we've also seen them draw Norwich. But it's really an exciting team. I hope to see Trincao play a lot more next season. I'm really excited with the way he looks. There's really a lot of great places. Hopefully Raul Jimenez can finally break back into his stride before that terrible head injury. But a lot to look forward to. And then
Yeah,
now,
and
yeah,
another point I think with Wolves is they going into the season, we kind of didn't know how they were gonna look because like 2 seasons ago, they were phenomenal under Nuno, and then last season they were terrible under Nuno. He went, Brune Lage was appointed, and he's been great. Like I really didn't my hopes for this Wolves team were not very high. So personally, they exceeded my expectations. Maybe mid-season, I didn't think they'd finish 10th. I probably would have thought higher, but all in all, not a bad season.
Definitely. And now moving on to Brighton, a team and me and you really have fallen in love with their manager, Graham Potter. I really do think he's probably one of the best managers in the Premier League currently. You look at the team they have, and then you look at the results that they pump out, and they just kind of it's a bit baffling. But you know what? They play with confidence, and the players on that team play with confidence as well. Cucurella really turning into one of the brightest prospects in the Premier League. Really excited to see what happens to him this summer. Trossard, Tariq Lamptey. There's so much. There's so many more. Really an exciting team, an exciting team. Jaffe, what do you rate them?
I mean, I think it's I kind of want to go A, but I mean, I think B is going to be fair for this one. What do you think, B?
I think a B is the right call. Like they finished in ninth place, and you look at the teams around them, and I think they were probably better than Leicester this season, but they still finished
Yeah,
below them.
yeah, and Brighton almost killed Spurs' UCL hopes with that
Mhm.
late Trossard goal. But they're a team that just outperform their expectations every year.
Year
Graham
after
Potter
year.
Graham Potter is a miracle worker, he really is. Um, and I think it's a great finish for them. They really should be happy with it.
I agree. I agree. Now moving on to Leicester. Leicester's an interesting team. Personally, never been a big Brendan Rodgers fan. And I think this year is a drop off year. I hate to say it, but I think this is definitely a season that Brendan's not going to be proud of. Last year, they were in the European places. They ended up in the Europa League. This year, not even getting European football. They've had their injuries, but I still think that this is a proven team. This team does well. They were strong performances last year. Yes, Wesley Fofana was out. Yes, Madison was out. But you know what? They have other players. They really do. I think any team with Jamie Vardy leading the line can be expected to put up some goals. So I'm gonna put them at a C, I think. Jaffe, how do we like that?
Yeah, I agree with that definitely because Leicester, I mean, no European football for them next season. They were in European positions for a few years now. So it's disappointing. Vardy's aging. They're gonna have to look to kind of rebuild that core a little bit. I think Tillemans. I'm not so sure if he's gonna stay, and I'm not so sure if he's the right guy to man that midfield. And then I think, of course, it hurt to have Fofana out. He's back, and he already looks so good. He's really gonna rise, he's gonna rise to the very top. I think Fofana is gonna become one of the best center backs in the world. But will he stay on Leicester? If that's the case, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Brendan Rodgers, so I'm kind of happy to see them finish out of a European position. But I think there's definitely brighter days ahead for Leicester, and I think they can view this as kind of a speed bump.
I agree. I agree. I think that's a fair rating. Moving on to West Ham, David Moyes, a few years back, I wouldn't even think he's a great manager. We saw the calamity at United, his failed stint in Spain. But with this West Ham team, he's really reinvigorated them. A lot of positives with this team. A lot. Obviously, a big fan of Antonio. I think he's a class striker. A lot of really good pieces about this team. Jaffe, what do we think about them?
Um, I think we saw last season what they do, and then playing this well this season shows us that it's consistent now. Moyes he's established an identity at this West Ham side, and I think they were phenomenal this year. Bowen, Declan Rice, two players that they need to keep hold on to, and I'm not so sure if they're going to be able to, especially Declan. But I don't know. Where would you rate this team?
I mean, they are in Europa. They are, I think very unlucky, honestly, to finish
Conference League,
behind
Conference League.
Conference League, excuse me. Very unlucky to finish behind Manchester United. Sai
Yeah,
Benrahma, also an incredible player. Probably underperformed this season, so I can't really give them. Is it a B or is it a C? I'm really borderline with this call.
it's got to be a B. I think that it has to be a B. C is too harsh.
I think a C is too harsh. Definitely a lot of positives. We saw the run they made in the Europa League. Definitely unfortunate to not make the finals. It's a good team, and like we said, unclear what's happening with a lot of their core players. Declan, Chelsea's begging for him. I'd love to see him partner either Kovacic or N'Golo Kante. Just a dream for me, really. But yeah, West Ham a B. I like that.
Yeah, I think so.
And with
And
this next team, I don't think there's a single positive about this team this whole season, aside from getting Ronaldo. Aside from getting Ronaldo.
I mean, like, I don't know how good of a signing that was, hindsight now.
Hindsight, what do you very important statistic to bring up. I don't think United's won a single game this whole season that Ronaldo did not play in.
Yeah, I mean, I think
He's
Ronaldo
he
just
he's pivotal for
he
this
was
team.
he was
I'll go to the ends of the earth to defend Ronaldo. It's not his fault. United needs a resurrection right now. Eric Ten Hag coming in. You know what? I'm gonna go bold. This was a failure for United, an absolute
failure.
failure this season. F is for failure.
Yeah, and like, the thing about this United team is, like, at the beginning of the season, there was insane amount of hype, that 5-1 win at Leeds, um, and then they went and signed Ronaldo. Like, I do not think Ronaldo was the right guy to sign. I think he was a distraction. He's too big of a name, and that ultimately wasn't what United needed. It Ronaldo being such a big name puts players like Pogba in a position where they're like, "Oh, he's a big name. He's treated like a god. Why can't I? I'm gonna do that too."
I disagree with you. I can't hear this Ronaldo slander any longer. Ronaldo
I'm
was
not
bailing
slandering
He's
Ronaldo
been bailing them
necessarily.
out all season. We've seen it in the Champions League. We've seen it in the Prem. He's lit the Prem on fire, regardless of what you want to say. He single-handedly took down your Tottenham in that 3-0 win. It's a
Me
team they
too.
need a rebuild. And you know what? Eric Ten Hag said it. Ronaldo's going to bring goals, and this United team better bring those goals next season. But for this season, it's an F.
Yeah, it has to be. And my point about Ronaldo is just like signing him like not that he's underperformed and hasn't been United's best player this season, but it was distracting. It put everyone in a position where like they were like we're gonna win the league. We just got Ronaldo and we just beat Leeds
But this
5-1.
United team's had I think they've had a lot of distractions. Like,
Yeah,
obviously what was happening with Ole, they had the whole Mason Greenwood situation, which we're not going to get into. But it definitely wasn't a smooth sailing season for them. The F is deserved. 0 goal differential on the season. Absolutely abysmal. If you're a United fan, my apologies. This is terrible. I couldn't even imagine. But yeah, United, just a failure of a season. Moving
terrible.
on to Arsenal.
Arsenal, you know, B is for bottlers. I have to say. Would have been an A. They did exceed expectations this year, but I mean, bottling top four was terrible for them.
They gave it
Clarteta,
to on a platter. They gave it to on a
yeah,
platter.
yeah, and I think they collapsed, and they had a lot of youth on this team, which often translates to inexperience. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I think Arsenal fans will end the season disappointed.
I couldn't agree more. Definitely a lot of bright spots, as you said. It's a young, thriving team. Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, Emil Smith Rowe, loads of bright spots throughout this team. But with those bright spots, they have their holes. Their defense has never really been consistent. Ben White's always been a bright spot. So is Tomiyasu. So is Gabriel. But they really just haven't been able to just truly show that they're a solid back line. Ramsdale's great as well, but you know what? As the season goes on, that's the difficulty of the Premier League is that if you can do it 38 times this season, can you get those wins and can you be consistent and can you just put it together day in and day out? And that's what Arsenal struggled with. We've seen Arsenal put on class performances. They beat Chelsea 4-2, Eddie Nketiah at the double. But you know what? Then they also turn around and they also have these very poor performances. Yet again, with Brentford first day of the season, like you really don't know what you're going to get from this Arsenal side. Personally, I back Arteta. I think he's great with the youth. I do think they have a young core here. A lot of exciting people linked with Arsenal this summer. Ousmane Dembele, maybe that's a stretch, but Gabriel Jesus for sure. It's exciting to see what they do, but experience is definitely an issue. Granit Xhaka never really been the leader that we want him to be. He lost the captain's armband a few years back. It's an interesting Arsenal side, but I think B is rightfully deserved.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mhm.
Moving on to Spurs. It's
Moving
my
on to
turn.
Spurs.
It's my time. Champions League, back where we belong. A tier, where we belong. Antonio Conte is at Reign. He's a miracle worker. Ben Davies and Eric Dyer and Davidson Sanchez for the last 3 games of the season as a back line. Emerson Royale, are you kidding me? Like, this team, how we finished top 4, I genuinely cannot believe. Like, I always back this team, but, like, the players we have, class, like Kane, Son, world-class players, but
Son, joint golden boot this season. They've really showed out in Antonio Conte. I've been saying it. He's a serial winner. He gets the job done. He really knows how to he really knows how to inspire a dressing room. And I think he's done exactly that with this Tottenham team. We've praised their January signings with Bentancur and Kulusevski.
yeah.
Kulusevski, absolute screamer at on the against Norwich final day of the season. I think there's a lot of really exciting things to come from this Tottenham side. We've
Yeah.
seen Bastoni is linked with them. Imagine that. Christian Romero, Bastoni, Eric Dyer. A lot of really exciting things to come.
Yeah.
Tottenham.
And I wanna add to a point that I've been thinking about, and I wanted to add that, like, a reason why I've just fallen in love with Antonio Conte is because, like, I've always said, like, player or coach, if someone came to Spurs, a team that hasn't won a trophy in 14 years, and establishes dominant success, they will go down in history, like, essentially. Antonio Conte, I don't think I've ever watched this team play better football, like, just picking teams apart 5-0, 5-1, 4-1, like,
This is with Emerson Royale at a right back.
it's and with Emerson Royale at right back, it's unbelievable, and I genuinely think, like, this is the best football we've played since the Pochettino days, and honestly, we might be playing better right now.
Definitely a great showing from Tottenham this season. Now moving on to my beloved Chelsea. It pains me to say this, but I think I'm gonna have to give them a C. Third place. I know many people would love to have third place, but with this Chelsea team, right off the back of winning a Champions League, we thought, with this Thomas Tuchel team, the way he just turned around this Chelsea side, everyone was looking forward to see what we could do this season. We brought in Romelu Lukaku. The side was exciting. And you know what? We just didn't challenge for the title. After December, our title hopes fell apart. Yes, I can blame some injuries, but if you want to win the Premier League, a few injuries can't destroy your season. And unfortunately, when it came to longevity, Chelsea just did not have it. It's unfortunate. I think a C is rightfully deserved. We're in a bit of a rebuild. We're going to be losing some pivotal players. Very sad to see Rudiger go to Real Madrid. It's painful. Uncertain what's happening with Christensen and Azpilicueta. Definitely some players are on the way out. Pulisic, fun fact, actually changed his Instagram bio, removed Chelsea from it today. Not the best sight to see as a Chelsea fan. We're definitely entering.
We're a good site given how given how poor he's been.
Definitely, honestly, he really, all I wanted was some lockdown Pulisic back. I want to see that Pulisic that scored that goal against City, that clutched up against Liverpool. And I think the C is deserved, and I guess I just have to patiently wait and see what Todd Bowley will do with this Chelsea team in the summer.
Yeah, I think of course it's got to be disappointing finishing third, not really challenging for the title after winning the Champions League. Um, but goalie, he seems like your savior, so I think you guys are going to be just fine. To be honest,
Definitely. He is pledging to invest a large sum of money. So,
yeah,
maybe not the way Abramovich was spending, but, we like to see a passionate owner in the Premier League. We know that, with a couple of good investments can go a very long way. And
yeah,
now
absolutely,
now moving on, Liverpool, it's really hard to fault them this season,
yeah,
not 90 plus points and not walking away with the title. It's hard for any team to swallow, but with Jurgen Klopp, always a proven manager, a very strong team with Liverpool. We didn't think they could get any better, and then they brought in Thiago. It's definitely a tough pill to swallow, but I'm still going to give them an A. The way they played throughout the season, I don't think you can argue with that. They were so close to the title. It was within their grasp, but it wasn't meant to be.
yeah, and obviously so unlucky. The amount of points they had this season, like it should win you the title. Um, and I think the fact that they even were in this title race is really commendable. They just clawed their way back, um, gave City a real run for their money up to the last match week. So yeah, I think A is fair.
Definitely. And now moving on to our champions. At least it's not Liverpool. At least it's not Liverpool. It's Manchester City for the 4th time in 5 years.
Yeah,
What a
I think
team.
this one speaks for itself.
What a team. Champions of Europe. Their record signing didn't even need him at the end of the day. Jackie G. Hopefully we'll see him play more next year, but this City team is really looking unstoppable.
Yeah,
I don't think I can fault them, and then they bring in Holland, and wow, I'm just scared, honestly. I'm scared for the Premier League.
yeah.
This
The,
City side
the,
played so well this year, and then they're gonna get Holland. Maybe next year's year then when they win the Champions League. Maybe it's the treble, maybe it's the quadruple. With this City side, I really think they can do whatever they want. I really
yeah,
think they control their destiny.
yeah, and it's so scary that they've strengthened after winning 4 titles in 5 years. Holland is he's gonna be great, and I think like right off the bat, City are my title favorites for next season.
I think they have to be. I think they're any logical football fans. I don't think you can stop this City team. I really don't. Even just trying to come up with some flaws in their game is challenging. Maybe I could point to going down 2-0 against Aston Villa. Laporte was a little bit slow. João Cancelo was a little bit tough to come back. But even then, I'm just nitpicking at that point. It's really such a strong team, this City team.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that sums it up kind of. Uh, F tier: Norwich, Watford, Everton, United. D: Burnley, Villa. C: Leeds, Southampton, Leicester, Chelsea. B: Palace, Newcastle, Wolves, Brighton, West Ham, Arsenal. A: Brentford, Spurs, Liverpool, City, and that concludes the Premier League season.
I'm pretty happy with this grading system. And
Yeah,
I definitely but the Premier League never fails to disappoint. This is the league me and you both love. Took us right till the very end, and you know what? It's gonna be a tough next couple months without footy, but we're just gonna have to make it through, and that's that.
yeah,
Premside
yeah.
Pod, signing out.
Cheers, boys.